Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Assalamu alaikum once again. Now, the another video, the another session that's about the question Jesse, and this time that's the part B. Explain the ethical issue for the finance director, Mr. Betso, setting out how the issues may be resolved. I strongly suggest that before attempting that question, we need to read the question part once again. First of all, all of you must have to recall the basic context of the question. Jesse company, business model, service provider for the data processing and analysis about the oil extraction to support the customers, but the service providing based on license. Okay, now Jesse company uses big data analytics, okay, and various algorithm in order to indicate the potential of finding oil in a particular geographical location. So for data processing, they are using the technical or advanced technology, big data analytics, algorithms. The chief data officer understands the science and statistics. So one of the personality is about chief data officer. Okay. Do remember here the ethical issue categorically. The requirement is about categorically. Mr. Betso, that's the finance director. Okay. So chief data officer understands the science and statistics, and can explain outcomes simply and clearly to customers. Finance director, Mr. Betso, who is ACCA qualified, has little knowledge of the technology involved. He feels that technology used is too complex. No need for him to understand it as long as the chief data officer understands. Chief data officer reports to finance director. So there is first ethical point. If we are the ACCA qualified or accounting professional, we are accounting professionals. We are professional accountants. We are ACCA qualified, chartered accountants, CIMA qualified. If we are a professional accountants, do we require the enough in-depth technical knowledge about the technology, like big data analytics, algorithm, for example, Chat GPT, if used with our business context? Do we require that? This is a very, I must say, a gray area. I must say that as a professional accountant, I must be competent about the accountancy profession. I must be competent with respect to accounting knowledge, and even the technology effect to the accounting aspects, that's very much important. But on the other hand, this doesn't mean that I don't have lack of knowledge, or I must say that I must say that it's not about that we have a bare minimum least knowledge or lack of knowledge related to the technology. That is part of my business activity. So here I must have a good enough knowledge to support the business decisions, to support the business cultures. Although chief data officer here, whose prime responsibility to understand the science and statistics and all the big data analytics and the algorithm, I don't want to get very in-depth knowledge. But a bare minimum knowledge I must required here for the reason, for what reason? For the reason to cover the basic aspects of the business. For example, if I'm a part of some business meeting, I must have enough knowledge related to big data analytics and the algorithms. So not a detailed knowledge, but it doesn't mean that professional accountant must have a zero knowledge. Number two, recently the outcome of the one set of data showed that there was a little chance of oil being found on one of the sites, but the finance director insisted the data was run again to include historical data, which would then indicate more favorable outcome for customer of oil company. That is about what he's saying, that rerun the data. This is something about compromising the professionalism, compromising the professional behavior. This is something about disintegrity. It's a question mark about integrity. That's the point of the ethics. That's the second point. Very important, whenever you are reading the question related to ethics, during the reading of the question, highlight the area or issues of ethics, because identifying the ethical issue is the first point. Then Mr. Bristow has a friend, Miss Stylos, who works as the accountant at Oleo Company. Okay, the Oleo Company is a customer. Miss Silo has asked Mr. Bristow for advice how to account for license to Oleo Company. Mr. Bristow suggested that Mr. Stylo use IFRS 16 right of use in the license. I've already told you that this is not right. This is if Mr. Bristow, a ACCA qualified professional accountant, advised Ms. Stylo about IFRS 16 application for the license, this is actually reflecting the lack of professional competence. This is not about technology, this is about IFRS knowledge. This is a question mark, because IFRS 16 it's applicable to IFRS 16 is applicable. It's not applicable to the license. It's the scope of IFRS 6. Within the scope of IFRS 16, it's mentioned that the license matter is not under the scope of IFRS 16. It's about knowledge incompetency. That is the third point. In addition, Mr. Bristow knew that Ms. Stylo has held share in Oleo Company and suggested to her that share price of Oleo Company likely to fall. Suggested her that share price was likely to fall because there was a little chance of oil being found. That is something about biasness. Once again, compromising professional behavior as a result of granting of the license. So once again, for these things, 3 to 4 highlighted point: knowledge about business data analytics, algorithms, rerunning the data to develop the report more favorable, IFRS 16 incompetency reflection, disclose information to the friend. These are the highlighted points. So first thing is that identify the ethical issue. Now we need to connect the things with the ethical principle. And finally, we have to mention some action point. That's a resolution point there. So this is what about marks, 10 marks, 2 marks. Number 1, Very important thing. Plan your answer. First thing is that if how to handle ethical dilemma or issues. It's very clear. Number one, identify the ethical issue. That's we have already identified here. Then linking with ethical principles. Number three, here examiner particularly highlight the resolution, how the issue will resolve, that the relevant action points. That is the relevant action points. That is how to handle with the ethics. Very important, the marking schemes. What marking scheme says? The technical marks here, that's 10. And the professional marks 2. That's a point. Here professional marks is specifically related to the action point. That you must be very much clarify what actions here or how the issue will resolve here with respect to Mr. Besto, the finance director. Key points. You know very well the time management. You just calculate within your mind. If you're working with the 12 marks multiplied by 1.8, it means you have almost 20 minutes. Plan time 4 minutes, and in fact you can save the time here. And execution 16 minutes. Now the key points here. What are the key points that need to cover here? One by one. Business data analytics and algorithm. As a professional accountant, because I am a professional, although a professional accountant, but I am a professional person, I cannot say that if I hired some technical person, the data analyst or the chief data officer, so I'm just I even not even to know about a single person knowledge of this PDA data analysis and algorithm. bare minimum knowledge. Here the ethical issue, the knowledge incompetence. Because here we required the bare minimum knowledge. Number two, rerunning the data. IFRS 16 leases knowledge incompetency. Disclose information to friend. You can make a heading for this. Compromising professional behavior. The very dangerous. And this is same applicable here. That's the point. That is the point. You can incorporate more things. For example, you have developed, for example, you wanted to develop bias report. That's a point. And resolution, that's called the action points. I strongly suggest that you have to, your draft must have to split in two parts. Your draft must have to split in two parts. The first part of the draft related to draft your answer as follows. First and second. Second point, is this. First, you have to write the things with the identify the ethical issue, link it with the ethical principles like this. Then the action points. Relevant action points here, 2 professional marks as well. The clarity of how to get the professional marks, the clarity of the answer, whatever you will write, that should be very much clear with respect to the action points. And the action points are very standard. Action points are very standard that I've already discussed with my ethics videos initially. Very standard. For example, here the action points with respect to the Mr. Besto Finance Director, refer to the audience, contact with the ACC as well. Whatever the correspondence about the ethical matters or consideration about the matters must have to make a written structure. Resignation, it's also the option. It's better to write the resignation point with respect to the company. The company will force to the or company may develop a circumstances to that Mr. Besto have to give the resignation letter. So that's a point. Overall, how to handle the ethics point. Now it's time that this is what about the suggested answer. This is the suggested answer. I strongly suggest that you have to read it. Very simple. Heading, make it clear, heading wise. The first point, big data analytics and algorithm. That's the issue. The question deals with company that provide location services to identify the location of the oil reserves. Okay. It is important accountant to keep their knowledge of technology up to date so that accountant essentially know what they need to take expert advice. Good enough, you can use the word good enough knowledge, bare minimum knowledge. In this case, company have appointed chief data officer to ensure clear accountability within the company. However, finance director had little knowledge to technology and needed some understanding of the technology in order to determine company strategy, and uphold company values and culture. That's an important point. The view that accountability is for the use of big data lies with the senior management include so because the chief data officer is under finance director. So if there are some issues related to chief data officers or related to the work of chief data officer is responsible, but Mr. Betso also responsible for this. Lease knowledge, IFRS 16 specifically exclude license from the nature of the scope. Mr. Betso should ask himself whether it's maintained the necessary skills, carry out experience as a role of finance director, lack of professional competency. It's a compromising of the basic principle of ethics, that's professional competency. You can write it. Another example of possible lack of professional competence is recommending friend that she use IFRS 16 to account for rights. Lack of knowledge and providing a wrong advice. Then rerunning data, even when correctly manipulated and processed. Big data may not deliver expected outcome. In this case, Mr. Betso insisted that the data was run again the intention was to include historical data, which would then result more favorable outcome to the customer. So that's actually compromising the integrity. The main issue is that Mr. Betso has manipulated data. Bias reporting shows a more favorable outcome for locating oil that is necessary case. That is false report, very danger, false report. This is the more, if you identify which out of all ethical issue, which is the most dangerous one, that you have to mention this false reporting. Mr. Betso has obviously put chief data officer under pressure to rerun the data, more favorable result. This will be something self-interest behavior. On part of Mr. Betso, disclose information to his friend. In addition, Mr. Betso disclosed confidential information to the friend. of share price will likely fall because a little chance of being found of the granting license. Because this confidential information is not necessarily accessible to other shareholder or investor. So the bets so giving friend unfair advantage over the rest of the market with its ethically immoral and compromising the integrity, biasness, since they affect others unfairly. Accountants should act fair and act in moral way at all times. Resolution. Yes, this is what the very important part, including 2 professional marks. Very important. And very structured things. But use the mind. Mr. Besto should try to identify the parties affected by action and lack of expertise. Should try to identify parties affected by his actions and lack of expertise. Number 1, have to identify the parties affected by actions and lack of expertise. First of all, must have to identify which are the affected parties and also identify what are the lack of expertise he have. He should consider who should be involved in resolution of the problem that he has created. He may contacting ACCA, approach colleagues, and should consider involve board of directors in its resolution. Mr. Betso should discuss lack of knowledge with directors of JC and potential consequence of the business. If the company or the director do not agree the particular course of action, it may be appropriate to consider his position within company. Forced resignation. During resolution process, he should document the substance of the discussion held, who was involved, and the reasons of the decision which were made. These are the resolution. Yes, this is of course a very generic. Number 1. Number 2, but your answer, if you really want to get technical plus professional marks, this answer, this writing structure, this part, resolution, must be very much complete and clear. Complete and clear. Here you will be able to get 3 to 5 marks. 3 technical, 2 professional. Professional mark doesn't mean that it's something different. Professional marks means whatever you are writing technically, that must be very much relevant and precise and complete. So that is all about this part of the session. So thank you very much for this video, and the question has now become completed. If you have any question, you can ask me on the WhatsApp.